Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular video, in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about H-2Bs. Now, what are H-2Bs? Well, a lot of people from different countries and even when they're here visitors, they come to the U.S. and they want to know, can they change to a work visa? So of course the first question I ask them is, do you have a college degree? And if they say yes, I go, do you have a sponsor? Well, a lot of times, many times, it gets stopped at the point where, do you have a college degree? Okay? And then they think, well, if they don't have a college degree, they're not going to be able to get a work permit. And that's not true. The best temporary visa to get, and there's some exceptions to this, of course, and so forth, which a lot of my other videos will get into different other types of non-immigrant work visas, such as the O, the P, you know, we can go on, the E, the L, and so forth. But if you basically don't have a college degree and you have a company that wants to sponsor you for a position that either doesn't require a college degree or would be classified as unskilled labor, then the H-2B is what you're looking for, okay? The H-2B is a temporary visa, and by temporary, I mean, I really mean temporary. It's not temporary / 3 years or temporary / 6 years or green card. It is temporary. Now, given that, and I'll go into some definitions of what they consider to be temporary shortly, but given that, you are able, should it be necessary, to extend or change your status, once the H-2B is over. It really just depends on the particular situation and whether or not you have found a proper position which will be able to allow you to change it in the future. Now what's temporary? Let me give some examples. And actually, when I'm looking or starting for an H-2B, I do question the company on what we would be able to do in order to have a temporary position available, and how it might be able to be worked into the company in order to make someone eligible for the H-2B. Now, there's essentially 4 different definitions of what is temporary. One is a one-time occurrence, okay? Now, one-time occurrence would essentially be that you have not employed people in the past and you will not need them in the future to do this. It's basically a short duration that's of one time, and it can actually go all the way up to 3 years as a one-time occurrence. So what might be examples of a one-time occurrence? Let's say the business is starting up, and let's say that in order to get the business running, you need to get your accountant or whatever it is from from your home country, to put all the invoicing systems together, the computer systems, to get the sales systems going, to get the marketing going, to do all that. And let's say you argue that for an H-2B, that'll take 3 years. Okay, so in that respect, you can have a one-time occurrence for an H-2B that's going to last up to 3 years. So that's a good way of getting somebody in for a few years, and then when it starts coming to the end again, you can think of how to change or alter or extend in a different manner that particular status. So that's the first one, a one-time occurrence. The next one would be what's called a seasonal need. So a seasonal need is where you look at the pattern of the company itself, and you specify why it is you need them in that particular season. So let me explain. Let me give an example. Let's say that in Boston, a particular restaurant is busy during the summer months, or during 5 or 6 months when it's not freezing cold out, when everybody goes on vacation and they have clam chowder and they have lots more food items they have to give there, so they hire a cook. Well, that cook could come on once a year for 6 months or so as a seasonal need based upon the pattern of the company itself. Now, what about the other two definitions of what's temporary? Well, one would be a peak load need. That is when the labor would be needed to supplement the permanent staff, and it doesn't become permanent in and of itself, but it only supplements it. So, just an example, let's say the Christmas season comes at Macy's, okay, and they're going to need for, let's say, 3 months before the Christmas season and 3 months after the Christmas season to clean up and account and do all that stuff, to hire a bunch more people to supplement the people who are already there because it's their busiest time of the year and so forth. So that would fall under the peak load need category. And then what about the last one? That would be intermittent need. That's when you need labor occasionally or intermittently for a short period of time, and basically you've not employed permanent or full-time people in that capacity as of yet. So you can usually find some type of position, some type of defined position as temporary for an H-2B, depending on what it is you need. Now, for an H-2B, it can be anything. And given that, it can't be doctors. Okay, no doctors for H-2Bs. But basically for the H-2B, let's just say you have a company. It could be the janitorial staff, it could be the accounting staff, management. It's wide open, really wide open. So what do you have to do to get the H-2B? How do you do it? Well, the H-2B is basically equivalent in a temporary manner as a perm or permanent labor certification would be to the green card. So in effect, you have to do a temporary labor certification in order to get the H-2B. What does that mean? Well, you have to essentially go through the procedures to show that there are no available U.S. workers for this temporary position. And if you can do that, if you successfully put it through and you get the prevailing wage and you do everything that's necessary and you get a certification back from the Department of Labor, which states, in fact, there are no available U.S. workers for this position, then you're able to go on to the next step, which is to file the actual H-2B petition with USCIS. And once you file it with USCIS, then they will look at the recommendation. That's what it is. It's a recommendation of Department of Labor as to whether or not there are available U.S. workers. And assuming they agree, they can then issue and approve the H-2B. You will then be able to bring the person in. Now, here's what's interesting about the H-2B, which doesn't apply in hardly any other area of immigration law. First, you don't need to even know the beneficiary that's coming in. Let's say you own a circus, and you have need for 15 circus workers, and basically you can even go further than that. Let's say you have the need for 15 circus workers, for 10 accounting people for the circus, and you can get it all under some kind of temporary need, so you can show for 9 months you need that. Okay. So you can actually file the H-2B, and in this case what I just gave, you'd file 2 H-Bs. You'd file one H-2B for the circus workers, and you could use multiple positions. So assuming it's more or less the same type of position, then you can file an H-2B for 15 positions or whatever, however many you have open. And if you get the temporary labor certification granted, you now have an H-2B available for 15 people to come in as circus workers. Again, I'm just using this example, but and actually there's an actual visa just for circus workers, so maybe that wasn't the best example, but still, you can get 15 people to come in. They show that they qualify, and then they will be issued the H-2B to be able to come into the U.S. And then you file another H-2B. Again, remember you needed like 10 managerial or accounting staff people. And as long as it's the same type of duties, you can then later show that they qualify to come in on the H-2B, and you can fill up every position you need by only filing, in this my example, 2 H-2Bs. You don't need to file 25 H-2Bs and go through 25 pre-labor certification packages and all that. You file 2, and if you, let's say you have 5 openings that are more or less the same position. Let's say you want to bring 5 people, and again, file one H-2B if it's the same position. Show they qualify, and bring them in. And then let's say that you do designate who's going to come in. You do know the beneficiary, but later they flake. They don't want to come in. Whatever it is, they don't show up. So you find someone else who's similarly qualified. You don't have to go through the whole procedure again. They are able to come in and get the H-2B. Now, there is an issue you need to be aware of, in that there are 66,000 H-2Bs issued per year. That's the law. They're not going to issue 66,001. So what they do is they divide it in every 6 months. So every 6 months, they have to use 33,000 H-2Bs. Well, they don't have to use, but generally they will. So they'll have 33,000 every 6 months. Once those get used up, boom, you're bumped to the next 6 months, and then you have to be sure you file in that particular area. Now, if you can't get in this 6 months allotment, then make sure it's timed right so you can get in the next one. Now, with H-2Bs, you cannot file more than 60 days before the actual job is due. So it's quick. It's really quick doing the H-2Bs. The labor certification is much faster. Once you get it to USCIS, much faster than a normal non-immigrant visa petition, because they know that it's temporary. They know that the need is essentially right away. So it doesn't do anybody much good if it takes a year to approve a petition that you needed 9 months ago. So what I'm trying to convey here is that the H-2B is a very good category for all kinds of positions to come in. And especially, if you use some of my other videos and you come in, let's say you come in on an E2 and you start your own business, and let's say the other person that you want to bring in is not necessarily of E2 caliber, you can bring them in on an H-2B, start the company, show it's a temporary one-time position to get the company going for 3 months, bring them in for 3 years, and then maybe they can change to H-1B after, depending, once the company's going, whatever it is. So that's how it works. Now, when the H-2B is done, of course, the employer has to attest to several different things. They have to show primarily they're going to pay the prevailing wage, that they're going to pay the return transportation costs, that they're going to notify immigration if the worker abandons or doesn't show up for the job within 2 days. So there's several different things, and if the employer decides to attest to all this stuff and doesn't follow it, and the wage and hour division comes in, they can actually debar the company from filing H-2Bs for another 5 years. So you want to make sure, of course, that you, as the employer, follow all the necessary directions and do everything that's necessary in order to properly get the H-2B, so the next year when it rolls around, assuming you have a company that the same type of thing happens year after year, that you're not debarred in any way and that you can't be cited for violating any of the particular provisions. So you also have to show there's no labor disputes, and there's some other smaller type of issues that come up with the H-2B. But what I would do is go ahead, and if you own the company and you want to know if an H-2B is available for your workers, give me a call. I'll give you a consultation, let you know what the possibilities are and if we can do the H-2B, and then I'll let you know how you're supposed to keep the file, how you can do, if the wage unit wants to come in and audit you, I'll let you know all that stuff that needs to be done so that there's no ambiguity on what is or is not supposed to be. the most part, you know the H-2B is available. It's a good visa. There's 33,000 of them every 6 months, and it's a decent visa to be able to come in on. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Be happy to help. More on the coming video.